Hey there, Trekkers. In this week's episode of Lower Decks, how does Tendi do on her first day as a science officer? Is the Cerritos the coolest California-class ship in the fleet? And what's this? Mariner has a crush on a female Andorian? Let's get all the answers on this week's Trek Tonight. Hit it. Hey there, how are you? Welcome to Trek Tonight, and here, as always, is my good buddy Leo Byrne-Genesek. Leo, how are you?
I'm walking and talking.
That's what we like to hear. That's what we like to hear. I'm sort of in the same boat. Anything exciting been going on for you in the past week since we were last here?
Not really, other than my regular day-to-day life, which I'd be really, any complaints I would have would be so ridiculous as to be, you lose anybody watching would lose respect for me if I were to voice.
Right, you lose credibility, I guess.
What little credibility I have. But I would say, it's life, up and down.
Right.
Although, the bright spot of watching, being able to see Lower Decks now once a week.
Sure. So, yeah. Well, let's bring in our special guest tonight, our technical advisor here for Trek Tonight, the man who always keeps us technically accurate, Mr. Craig Lubin. Craig, how are you?
Hello, everybody.
Yeah.
Fun being here again.
Oh, yes. It's always great to have you, Craig.
This time not in the back of a van.
Yes.
How you been, Craig?
Doing all right.
Good. Well, we had I wanted to bring something up. And those of you who I'm struggling. I don't think I've even told you about this, Leo. I'm struggling with YouTube right now. And I'm not very happy with them because they have an automated system that looks at your videos and decides whether or not someone could have a copyright claim on them.
Sure.
And I thought perhaps maybe it was because we were using clips, because we were doing clips, although everybody uses clips, so I'm not really sure what the problem is there. But it turns out it's our music. And we have paid for that music through a company called Pond 5, and we have the rights to use that music. So I'm in the middle of messing with them, but last week's episode got blocked on YouTube. Nowhere else. You can catch it on Twitch. You can catch it here on Facebook. But so we're messing with them. But if I can't straighten that out, I'm going to be annoyed with YouTube because
it's copyright strike. Yeah.
It's not fair. It's not fair because we do own the rights to that music to use it.
So, gentlemen, I don't want to get, I don't want to demonetize you at all. We have this conversation afterwards, but yes, you have to be careful about getting demonetized on YouTube.
Yeah,
it's an issue.
Yeah, I mean, it may be that we just say goodbye to YouTube if they keep being a pain in the neck, because we don't get that many views on YouTube anyway. But yeah, it's.
I can help you guys out.
It's crazy. Well, they're working. We're looking at it. I've been in touch with them, so hopefully we'll get it straightened out. But at any rate, so we had a brand new episode this week, and it was a lot of fun. What did you guys think?
Craig, why don't you go first? Because I talked.
Yeah, why don't you tell us what you thought, Craig?
I thought this was a fun episode. I'm beginning the show. When I first started watching this show, to be honest, the first season, it really wasn't my cup of tea. I kind of grew on me in the second season.
Right.
And this season has been, I thought of improvement, even more than the second season. So this one, I thought it was hilarious on the trope of, non-Federation folks exploring, various worlds without, Federation approval. I thought that little timeline was funny. That plot point was great. I thought the whole thing of the Cerritos crew being thought of in high esteem, but not really being shown overtly was great. So it was I enjoyed it. I really am getting into it. So I thought it was good. I did like a lot of the call it the Green Hope Globes, granting how that manifests itself a few times. That was pretty funny.
It was they looked a little bit like the Lochnar from Heavy Metal.
It was like the Lochnar. You're right. Yeah,
I was thinking the same thing. All they needed was a volcano, or and a Track warrior.
Yeah. And of course, for those of you who don't know, we're referring to the '80s film
Heavy Metal.
Heavy Metal. Thank you. It was here, and then the minute my mouth had to say it disappeared.
Guys, I don't want to make us feel older than we are, but that came out in 1980.
Yes.
So
yeah,
and we all saw it in the theaters. So
yep.
Do the math. Anyway, it is. They did look a lot like the Lochnars. I did love Ransom's rant about non-Starfleet scientists exploring. He's like, and I think partially because because they have to go clean it up. It becomes now a chore for them. He's like, what? Join Starfleet if you want to explore. Do you get your degree and you just go to a planet? He was very. And then we also got to see Lieutenant Commander Steven Stevens, the bald officer, who is the guy who definitely has a man crush on Ransom. He thinks we have a special bond. And he's like,
please stop saying that.
Please stop saying that. Since Mariner is still under, sort of on double secret probation for her past sort of going rogue, he's like, consider any order from him like an order from me. And
well, he has stated that he's her mama now.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, actually. So they go, they have this weird competition with the crew of the Carlsbad. We're all like, well, no, we don't sneak off. We were following orders, and just like being like real dicks about it, and they're all like, we have a bad reputation, which is kind of a fun thing because like it's sort of like funny when somebody be like, oh, that guy hates you. You're like, what? I didn't even know. It's suddenly
know him. Yeah,
they've become the villains or the joke of Starfleet. Of course, that's not as it turns out, but this felt like very much like an old school sci-fi story where it's like these psychic rocks, which also turn you to stone. They show you your fantasies, you reach out and they turn to stone. But also, as we discover, you can see everybody else's fantasies. It's not just in your head. They manifest so everybody can see it, which is, of course, embarrassing because any dark, weird fantasies you have sort of, bubble to the surface.
Well, so the Rutherford's fantasy is the same woman that
Leah Brahms,
yeah, it's the same warp engineer that Geordi had a thing for, right?
He did. Geordi had his weird, creepy, inappropriate hollow relationship.
Yeah.
And she was voiced by Susan Gibney, the same actress. She came back to voice it, which is great.
Oh, cool.
I do love it when they can bring these in. According to Mike McMahon, the producer of the show, says a legacy character, which I would classify as being someone like Riker or Q, someone like that, costs 3 times as much as other actors. I'm not sure they have to pay Susan Gibney quite as much as they would pay Jonathan Frakes or John Delancey, but I'm glad to see her come back.
Yeah.
So the idea that Rutherford has fantasies about, doing engineering, intimate engineering with her was a great moment. Now, also, Mike McMahon had stated at the end of last season that Mariner and Jennifer the Andorian were going to be, in a relationship of some kind.
See, I didn't catch that. So this was a whole big surprise.
He talked about it in an interview. So
I see. Yeah.
They were like, oh, we should hang out, kind of like, and he's like, oh yeah, they're going to be dating.
Right.
And the idea that, of course, Mariner not being a super emotionally available person, unless it's rage.
Not big on sharing.
Not big on sharing and not big on intimacy. Because she's like, she's had this sort of tumultuous life. So it's easy to keep everybody at a distance. But the sexy Jennifer in a bikini would be like, I want to be in a long relationship.
It was one of them, I forget who it was, says, wait, you're babes now?
Your baby, that was Boimler.
Yeah.
So it's nice to see you with a girlfriend, and not instead of destroying everything in your path.
I love how they made her blush. I thought it was great.
Yeah.
I was embarrassed. Yeah.
It was very sweet.
It was cool.
And like I said, the whole look of this planet was very like old school sci-fi, that sort of sandy rock and the glowing green orbs.
Mm-hmm.
And the Cerritos is like playing basketball now with the orbs, trying to outdo the Carlsbad crew, and this weird misplaced competition with these other lower deckers. Right. And then Stevens is like, don't be all cavalier with these things. We don't know what's gonna, we don't know how dangerous they are. And she, of course, Mariner sort of goes off book and says, these guys were saying how that Ransom's leadership qualities are bad and his core is weak. And he's like, that drives him away. He's like, here's the strongest core in the fleet. And then he starts, like, he rolls up his sleeves over his hands and throws two in at once, knocking over the container. And of course, they all crash and everything goes to hell. Their nightmares start appearing, including an appearance by Kukulkan Khan from How Sharper Than a Serpent's Tooth, an animated series episode where an ancient Mayan Mesoamerican god appeared to the Enterprise, talking about how it brought knowledge to Earth and maybe humans aren't worthy of it, and if they don't pass this test, they're all doomed. That was a nice deep cut. I
liked which was not a deep cut at all, but the clown Klingons.
Clown Klingons, or
I thought was great.
Maybe, I don't know.
And then the Borg snake was pretty cool too.
Yes, the angry raisin man, which I assume was from Boimler's.
Right.
That had to be.
Yeah.
It looked just like the California raisin leader from years ago.
Right.
Minus the pork pie hat and sunglasses.
Yeah. Well, he must have lost his hat.
It was being worn by the Andorian werewolf Jennifer.
Yes. Yes.
He was like, I'm gonna get old with you, babe, and raise orchids.
I love that. Oh man.
They get straight into the cave. They have to like do knock the rocks down with the finger.
Well, and then it was cool because then they come up with this. I mean, let's talk a little bit about Tendi, because Tendi is having her first day, sort of official first day, I guess, as a science officer, and for some reason she gets paired up with
Dr.
ship's counselor. I forget his name now.
Dr. Miglimo.
Right, Miglimo. Yeah.
His voice by
as her mentor, which doesn't really make a lot of sense, but and of course he's typical of him. He's just sort of like, well, we'll learn this together,
She's like, because he's never done it before.
Right. Right.
And
look, an introduction by Spock. Oh yeah, Vulcan stuff. Yeah.
But she's like, can I just take a
it seems logical they could have had an editor.
Yeah. And she's like, can I just take a test?
I love that.
Yeah, but he recommends that she go and try to support Captain Freeman, and Freeman is in the middle of trying to wrap up what the Hood had started, which was a negotiation between the scientists and the indigenous people of the planet, which are the Scubbers.
I wrote it down.
I had it written down.
The Scubble.
Scubble.
That's these silicate aliens, rock people. And
I have a question. Were they the same silica creatures from the Star Trek, the original series episode with Kirk and Lincoln?
those are the Excalibins.
Okay. Yes.
Which we saw the body of in the Collector episode from last season. And they used the remains because when heated up, they become like very acidic or something like that. That's how they cut the hole in the wall and escaped. They're not
that's right. Okay, yeah.
The Excalibins, although they are both silicate-based aliens. And he has a big staff with like a geode at the end.
I did see that. Which they were.
But things sort of things go south in a very strange way in that meeting, not because of the scientists and the aliens, but because the aliens present a gift, and the two captains keep trying to pass it back and forth.
Well, the thing is,
nobody wants to take it,
and they want to phaser. They want to phaser it in half at one point.
Well, the thing is, the captain of the Carlsbad is a young guy, and she's like, "What? Did he just graduate from the academy?" And he's like, "Well, I'd like to see how the old school does." And she's like, "What?" So it becomes like this thing, like this weird generational thing. And she's like, "I insist you take it." He says, "Well, my generation doesn't really collect trinkets." Because this whole thing. She's like, "I think you should." She's like, "As the senior officer, you should take it." He says, "Well, as the senior officer, I'm telling you to take it."
Right.
Back down, and the two of the Scrubble and he's an alien scientist are sort of looking at each other like, "What's going on?" Although we find out more later. And Ted even says, "Well, there's an anomalous energy reading in this thing, and it's like this sort of stone pyramid." And she's brushed off by the captain, who doesn't want to hear it because she's locked in this battle of wills with this other captain over the minorest part.
Take ownership of this gift.
Yes.
Yeah.
She then goes to the sick bay and has a little confab with Dr. Ta'ana, and she's like, so you shit the bed, although they bleep it out. They bleep out shit. And she basically convinces her, like, "Listen, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to be a good officer. I know because I recommended you. But, you're going to make mistakes, and that's how you learn, and it's okay." She said, "Are you going to cry?" But again, it looks like it's the same guy. There's always the guy on the sickbay bed who's got something terribly wrong with him, and I think it's the same character. And it's like, this guy's toes are being digested, and he's not crying. He's like, "What?" He's like, she's like, "Shut up!" And there's some weird alien fish on this guy's foot,
hanging on his foot. Yeah. And I love the fact that the things that she says keep getting worse. Like, eventually she's like, "Well, I'm going to have to amputate his foot. He'll grow another one. We'll grow him another one." Like, what? Yeah. But everything she says, like offhand about how he's going to be cured, gets worse and worse. Yeah.
But it does. She obviously is sort of maybe the real mentor. Although Migley and Moe's advice wasn't bad because being there was good for her. She did learn something. Although I would say it's sort of a weird parenting dynamic, like a father-mother sort of thing. Migley, like you said, he clearly is not qualified to train her, but he also is a counselor, so he sort of understands people's emotions.
Right.
Maybe sort of like throwing her in the deep end, kind of, forced her to rise to the occasion.
Yeah, I just wonder who assigned him to that task.
Captain, maybe? I don't know.
Maybe, I don't know.
Maybe there's I
think Tendi had just assumed it would be someone in the sciences department. And, yeah. Right.
So,
it was a good, avuncular character, if they will, right?
Right, there you go. Yeah. Who as having the background of a bird, he is eating the worms
his worms.
Yeah.
I'd like it. Garcon, I'd like another plate of millet, but cut me off after that. So.
Oh, look who we have here. I can get my mouse to work. We have Keith dropping in saying he really liked the Tendi story in this episode.
I do too. I tend to use a character I feel like doesn't get as much screen time as I would like.
Right.
I'm hoping that'll change this season. I mean, she's like good, like in the group stuff, she's there, but I like having her have her own storyline. This episode,
yeah,
to really like reinforce her training as a science officer.
Yeah.
So
now I don't think there were quite as many Easter eggs in this episode. Did you catch a lot in this? I didn't really see the couple we've mentioned, you know, in the nightmares and stuff, but I didn't. It wasn't really loaded like it normally is.
Maybe not as much. I mean, we obviously had. What's her name? We had Leah Brahms. The Hood was a ship that was seen in TNG and Deep Space Nine. It's a Excelsior class ship. And
Excelsior, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's been referenced to other places. Yeah, the admiral that the Boimler shows. I mean, I guess it may be a budgetary thing. There can have only so many guest stars. But his admiral was more of a generic admiral, you know.
Right.
I love that. One of the Easter eggs is when they're trapped in the cave, they phaser a rock for warmth, which we first saw in the Captain Kirk split into good and evil episode, Turnabout Intruder. That is one of my favorite Star Trek bits. Is phasering a rock so it glows red, and they use it for warmth rather than like starting a fire.
Right.
So it is both cheaper and safer, both in
I think it was done a few times in the original series, wasn't it?
At least
I think Sulu does it.
Sulu does it in Turnabout Intruder. McCoy does it in Private Little War when Kirk is recovering from the Mugatu bite.
Right.
So yeah, it's at least twice. They sold, and I never got one, and I'm sorry I didn't. It was a lamp that was a rock, and it came with a phaser, like a little hand phaser, and you would phase it, and it would glow. And
That's awesome.
I was like in between jobs. I'm like, I can't really justify spending money on this.
My cousin had one of those, and my aunt, his mom, you know, they had a place out in Long Island, thought it was a real rock, and she put it in the outside in the rock garden. Just
that's funny.
Typical
mom thing to do.
Yeah.
Let me look at my notes. I know that there were a few. I mean, this wasn't so much an Easter egg as the alien of the group from the Carlsbad. When he trips, he goes, "I pulled my dominant groin."
I thought that was funny.
There's not so much. Well, it's a bit of an Easter egg. Is the actor who did the voice of Baron of Captain Mazer, the captain of the Carlsbad, was voiced by Baron Vaughn, who did the voice of Tom Servo on Mystery Science Theater.
Oh, neat.
So
neat.
The fact that again, these are more jokes. Is that in Boimler's fantasy that he's in the sidecar of that like hover motorcycle, and you know, Mariner says, even in your fantasy, you're not driving. He says,
I thought that was funny.
Driving makes me angry. He's like, I'm a natural passenger.
So I thought that was funny.
Not as many Easter eggs as usual, but I did a deep cut on.
You know, that I noticed that as well, and I'm actually, you know, I think that's a good thing. That it's actually just sort of trying to do its own. You know, you can tell jokes that are having an Easter egg all the time.
Yeah, I mean
it's fun, but
right.
The Easter eggs are usually like little throwaways. You know, they're just like background characters. There is a Gazinti on board the Cerritos, who we've seen a number of times. which are different from the Cations. The Kazinti were created in the short stories and novels of Larry Niven back in the day, and he wrote an animated series episode called "The Slaver Weapon," where the Kazinti, and they're like a cat-like people with these sort of weird bat ears and naked tails for reasons that I cannot explain.
And in that old cartoon episode, they mentioned the fact that they had the Man Kazin Wars that were described in Larry Niven's novels. So does that mean that the Man Kazin Wars or human Kazin Wars are canon in Star Trek?
It's a good, let's call it a gray area, because it's about who owns the rights.
Right.
For headcanon, yes. For purposes of actual canon, probably not. But it is an interesting thing. But I guess they can use the image because it was in the animated series, what they can use and what they can't.
Right.
But they tend, a lot of them are little. The Easter eggs tend to be throwaway jokes. They usually are not huge plot points.
Right.
But this admiral, he very much looked like it was a little bit like Riker, but blonder hair and sort of this Saxon admiral. He's like, I can make you a captain, and so there was a lot of cool stuff. Okay, agreed. It was an Easter egg light episode, but I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. After all that harumphering. Harumph. You're gonna harumphify that guy. Anyway, I liked it. I liked, I always like the A and B stories, which I think is something we don't get as much of in. Like I love Discovery, but they tend not to have an A and B story as much.
Right.
No.
Not that they don't exist, but not in the traditional sense, the way like a TNG episode would be like.
Yeah.
They're exploring this thing, but then Geordi and Data are getting into hijinks on the holodeck.
Well, it's like that thing that sort of threw us for a loop a little bit in episode 1 of the season, where the A story became the minor story and the B story became the major story.
Yeah.
And which was, I don't know, went right over my head at the time. But it's cool that they do that. They
do. We also find out that the Carlsbad crew are just like, you guys are heroes. Like the Cerritos they describe it as the enterprise of support ships.
Right.
And that they're all kind of famous, and they're like, oh, you did all that stuff, and there's you stood four together in an alien court, and Boimler says, well, there's really more of a party, but which was the episode Veritas from season 1, which I love the idea that they've sort of become famous in this sort of. They said, well, you may not, the whole fleet isn't talking about you, but you're Cali class famous,
right? And they're famous for sort of being badasses and doing really cool stuff, and
breaking the rules too, which I thought was kind of
Yeah.
So they also.
I was trying to look before, and I probably should have done this before we went on air. But did anybody think that the scientist, the alien scientist, looked a little bit like John Lovitz?
A little, yeah.
Yeah. And I kept waiting to hear him actually be John Lovitz, and he wasn't. But
John Lovitz also a little.
I can't find a picture of him online.
There was no comments about Morgan Fairchild being his wife or anything, so it threw me off.
We've got. They also, he looked a little bit like the Duplers. I mean, he was green and had hair.
He did, yeah.
But that sort of nebbishy, sort of the nebbishy alien, which we're getting to see a lot of on.
Boy, talk about an annoying race, the Duplers.
Duplers, yeah, they're.
I'm glad there isn't one here to hear me say that. But.
Bloop, 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 bloop.
I'm sure they're going to hear you, and you're going to get. They're
like an intelligent tribble, it just
a little bit like the tribbles they duplicate and cause trouble. Now we eventually find out that these aliens and the scientists are in cahoots because these orbs are actually reading people's minds. Because they were like, the snake comes into the cavern and it spits out a basketball, and they're like, "Why is that a comment?" Because I know that what I said.
Yeah, I got it. Hang on a minute. It's Keith. He says, "I heard that."
I'm so anxious. Anyway,
oh my gosh, I'm so embarrassed.
So he gets picked up by Kublai Khan and turns to stone, and his arms break off. And the snake comes in and it spits out a basketball, and they're like, "Are you afraid of basketballs?" And Rutherford's like, "No, I haven't thought about basketball in years," until Stevens said something about it, because he was sort of throwing them in like they were basketballs.
Right.
And they're like, "Huh, that was weird." And they go deeper into the cave because they get a reading that there's some sort of transmission, and they come across like a door, and there's an access panel. They come in, and it's all these crystals, and apparently these crystals are reading people's thoughts, not just like they're like people's fears and fantasies, but like access codes and
right.
Like
and there was Federation technology in there,
and it's Federation technology, and they
so
they bust out, and the Cerritos and the Carlsbad crew get to the real Cerritos experience by beating up all these these fantasies gone amok. And Boimler and the female ensign from the other side are both trying to signal the both times. They're like, "Oh no, sorry." They kind of like, "Oh, you first." No, yeah, and but they do get up, beam up, and they burst into the room. And it turns out that the idol has a transmission in it.
Yeah, the little pyramid statue they keep passing back and forth.
Has, basically a bug, and what they were going to do is steal information and sell on the black market, as we found out, because the scientists wanted better equipment, and the rock people wanted more rocks. Says
right.
Captain Friedman. I don't understand.
Yeah,
but they'll be facing a Federation tribunal, and it was kind of a nice moment. We were like, because Tandy comes in and just like smashes the rock, and there's the camera's like, "Have you lost your mind?" And then she shows the thing.
Sorry, I have to object, because scientists are always underfunded. So look what they have to do,
right,
in order to fund the research.
There I would like to. Well, if they joined Starfleet, they'd be properly funded.
There you go.
Is what Ransom was saying at the beginning of the episode.
Once again, it's a military-industrial complex has all the toys.
Listen, you're going to go all Carol Marcus on me, and
there you go. No, it's not Carol. It's actually David.
David. Scientists have always
been pawns of the military.
So, but it's Tandy finally.
I'll be killed by Klingon later.
Yeah, right.
And then they have a celebration in their. I don't believe it's called. I don't think it's ever been named. The sort of the bar rec area. I don't. I'm not sure it's been given a name. If anybody watching knows that, please pipe in. But
I don't think the bar has a name that I know of. Although, is it just the bar that has the symbol with the two olives on the stick, or is that the Cerritos'?
That's the Cerritos. It says Cerritos, and it has a martini glass with an olive.
Two olives.
Yeah. And Commander Stevens is back with like a weird cast situation. I guess they were able to reverse the stonification of him and regrow his arm so they can regrow a foot. I imagine regrowing arms is probably just as easy. He's hitting on the first officer of the Carlsbad, who's a Vulcan, who wants none of it. We've seen him try to put his moves on other female officers in the past with very little success. Today is no different. Spills his drink on his face, and it turns out that is a cinnamon schnapps, which may be the grossest, most high school, like middle school drink you might steal out of your parents' liquor cabinet.
Yeah.
So we find the two lower decks groups are hanging out, and they're all like They're like, oh, how famous they are, and they're like, Mariner's like unstoppable force of nature, and Rutherford, he's a genius with with cyborg implant powers, and
Yeah, all
Teddy's
their
like
reputations.
like
Yeah.
a ray of sunshine, and positivity. And Boimler says, oh, well, he's like, oh, does everybody think I'm older? Like, no, you're mostly described as a comical robot who gets into trouble. And he's like, no. And he's like, one of the other guys, yeah, I expected you to be like a floating cube. And
Yeah.
he's like, no, 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 don't tell them I'm people. They're like, and Teddy, and he, and he, in an awfully mean mode, says, hello, I am Boimler. I wish to be people. It's like, no, please tell
I
everybody
am
I'm
people.
people. But that sort of tracks.
Yeah.
But it was a fun episode. I really enjoyed it. I thought we got to explore Tendy's story arc in a more more fully fleshed out way.
Right.
And it was a fun episode. Getting trapped in the cave, like Devil in the Dark, or I know there's an episode of TNG where they have that problem.
Yeah.
It felt like a
Well,
very
I thought the actual reveal of what was going on was a very Trek kind of reveal.
Also, if my second viewing, when Tendy first scans rocks, she's like, "Oh, there's an anomalous energy reading." You see the rock alien and the scientists sort of give each other like side eye, like, "Uh oh."
Oh, really?
Which,
I didn't notice that.
like they look at each other, like you might be like, "Are they like?" You don't really notice it because you're probably focused on the rock, and I noticed it with my second watch through. They're like, "Yeah, that's weird." But it was a lot of fun.
Why that happened?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's strange. It's probably just a natural occurrence phenomenon. But a lot of we also found out that Ransom's stand-up is more about the perils of dating. There's something about the
Dating and mating.
Dating and mating.
Dating and mating. I'm not sure I don't want to see his tight five. I have to say, I'm not. I think it would just be very cringeworthy.
Did you have anything other, Craig, that we haven't touched on in regard to the episode?
I thought that the argument over the I forgot the name, but the pyramid thing was just the way it escalated to this ridiculousness was, well, fine, I'll phase her in two, right? It just up in that point, I thought sometimes the humor, like I said, the first season could get a little soft mark. This was just people just riffing off each other, just making it making a mountain out of a molehill in a funny way, right? So
right.
I mean, but it was it was a fun plot, but it's pretty simple. I mean, for not much was no offense to the episode.
Yeah, it is, and it's interesting because we came off of on another program. We came off of Picard, and then season 2 of Picard, and then on our program we went to Strange New Worlds, and now going to Lower Decks. Lower Decks seems very simple in a certain way to me, and I think it's just because we were tracking more elaborate programs. The other shows are more elaborate in some ways, but it's very enjoyable. I'm really enjoying it.
I like the cleanness of this episode. Like, you didn't get to, because sometimes they can front load so much and they can't really wrap it up. That's the problem even with an hour-long show. There's so much stuff that they are in a hurry to wrap everything up by the end. This show, it's I'm going to say about 20 minutes an episode. Just counting the opening credits and the end credits. So it's 22 minutes.
I did notice some technical changes across not this show, but starting with Star Trek: Strange New Worlds, and in the latter show you have the Enterprise showing up, and they do that little logo trace, and they did it. I noticed they did that with this season of Lower Decks. Yeah, so I'm wondering if that's going to happen, and
I would imagine when Discovery comes along.
I have to admit, I like it, and I like the idea that they change up for each show.
Yeah.
And I say simple. I have no technical acumen whatsoever, but I imagine it's once they have the basic animation, they can swap out the models if
Right.
it's that compartmental.
Yeah, I just think it's going to be a cool little touch for them if they change it for every series. I think that's a neat little. It ties them together, but gives it its own individuality.
I think they will, because you noticed it just said Star Trek, right? It didn't say
right.
Named it said Star Trek, and they've done it for 2 shows. I'm pretty sure you'll see it in Prodigy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Prodigy,
And
which
then,
also, by the way, happy Star Trek Day to everyone.
Yes, happy Star Trek
that's
Day,
right.
guys.
It was 56 years ago. It was 56 years ago that Star Trek first premiered on NBC.
Oh God.
So, which is pretty remarkable.
As I'm going to be 58 this month, that makes some sense.
Yes. So it is
I'm Star Trek old.
We're all older than Star Trek. Okay.
Yes.
By
a couple years. Yeah.
But also, I also happen. Overall, I would say it's a good episode. I think we all liked it. I liked the simplicity of it because I thought it kept it a clean show rather than being too cluttered. But I did watch the Star Trek Day's festivities, and there was a number of announcements, and I made some notes, which I'm going to drop on you. I imagine anybody who's watching probably already know these, but I would like to.
Well, I didn't get a chance to watch it. I was too busy with work today, so lay it on me. Lay it on me.
Carol Kane from Taxi and also Scrooged and many other things is joining Strange New Worlds this coming season as the new chief engineer. On Prodigy, which we saw a clip of,
and I predict that Carol Kane will not make it through the full season.
I really hope they don't kill off. They don't just become a joke. It's like a little. I hope they don't do that. Maybe
just like Harry Potter.
It just becomes like a joke. They may do it. I'm not.
Defense of the Dark Arts.
Yeah.
Chief Engineering Enterprise. Remember, they killed off Engineering. You guys remember Engineering Olsen from the 2009 Kelvin universe?
Yeah. All right. Anyway.
Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. Okay. It's hard to say that.
So, on Prodigy, which they showed us a short clip of, the outrageous Okana, who was from the episode of the very same name on TNG, played by Billy Campbell, who was also the Rocketeer, with amongst many other parts, is coming back to voice his character and is on the Prodigy for some reason. I'm not quite sure why, but we'll find out. They are doing a scripted podcast based on what happened to Khan when he was put on SETI Alpha 5 before he's found by the
Enterprise. Well, no, it wasn't the Enterprise. It
was Chekhov and Commander Captain Rigel. It's been a long time, guys.
Yeah, I don't know.
All right, forgot the name of the ship.
I'm blanking on the name of the ship.
That's what I'm trying to remember. Is the name of the ship
Reliant? The USS Reliant.
Oh, of course, it was the Reliant. Oh my God, how stupid! Yeah.
Right.
If it was Star Trek old.
If it was a Borg snake, it would have assimilated us already. But they're doing it as a scripted podcast because they said we wrote like 3 episodes for a TV show about Khan's life on that planet, presumably pre and post, disaster. Never got made for reasons, but they're adapting and they're turning to a scripted podcast.
Cool.
Also, the Pod Directive, hosted by Paul F. Tompkins and the actress who plays Mariner, whose name I'm blanking on again because we're all Star Trek old, and I can't keep 2 names in my head at the same time. Are hosting that, and it's coming back in February. Also, Picard comes back in February. Picard season 3. There's going to be a Lower Apps phone game that is dropping on the 12th. So in 4 days, you can download it. I've been reading about it. And I think Badgie is the main villain of this game, which makes sense. Badgie, I would love to see the return of Badgie this season.
Oh, yeah.
And
actually, didn't we see Badgie come back or no?
No,
No, I must have
haven't
been
seen
watching
it.
an episode from last year. Yeah.
Badgie, who I would love to see come back in some form. We have a holodeck episode. Perhaps we'll see Badgie. And what else is going? Oh, Prodigy is coming back on October 27th. And let me see. Let me look at my calendar.
I was going to say, do we know now what the next show is? It will be Prodigy or?
It would be Prodigy. So.
Oh, okay. I don't know whether I can do another animated show right after an animated show, but we'll see.
Well, it is dropping on the last day. If my math is correct, and it may not be, it's either the same week as the last episode of Lower Decks or the week after.
Okay.
So I would not mind doing a little bit of a dive into it because we will. I don't think we're going to be getting Discovery until either toward the very end of the year or the beginning of next year.
Okay.
So
that's about right. I think Discovery, the next season, is slated for early next year, 2023.
It might be
well, and Strange New Worlds is too, 2023.
Yeah. So, and I know Picard is coming back on, as announced by Patrick Stewart today on the stream. It will be February 16th. I don't know if they're going to break up the seasons the way they did. They've been doing that occasionally. They broke up because Prodigy, what they're bringing back is still the first season. They only did. Was it 10 episodes? But I guess it was supposed to be a 20 episode season, but they broke it up into two halves. So
cool.
This next part seems a lot more Star Trek. Like they're now wearing the uniforms. It's less about them, like fucking around on the Prodigy, not quite knowing what they're doing, and being. I'm sure they're going to say fucking around on this children's show.
I was going to say that. Good language.
Like, it's time to stop fucking around.
Yeah.
Nice
hey kids.
Hey kids.
Watch Prodigy. They ain't fucking around. Yeah.
So
I'm sure that word gets used a lot on Nickelodeon.
Yeah, well, they got to learn somewhere.
Hey, Keith says that while we're not exactly the target audience for Prodigy, it turned out to be a pretty good show, and that is true. And he follows up with, and as the season went on, it became more and more Trek-like. Yes,
I just started watching it, and I agree. I agree with Keith. Yeah. I'm in this third episode right now. I'm noticing it's starting to get a little bit more. I'm enjoying it.
Didn't it feel Star Wars to you, Craig, in the very beginning?
Yes, very much.
Yeah. First two episodes, which they originally released in one long episode, felt very Star Wars. A lot of bright colors, a lot of action. But I think it's as an introduction to Star Trek, it's not a terrible way because Star Trek can be a very heady thing because there's the action and adventure part, but there's also a lot of, ethical debate in Star Trek.
Oh, and I think it was done on purpose because the Star Wars franchise has a much stronger foothold in kids than Star Trek does. So if you're trying to draw some of those Star Wars kids over to Star Trek, it makes sense to make the beginning of it feel a little bit Star Wars-y.
That was J.J. Abrams' take on the Star Trek back in 2009, right? You guys remember that? Or 2008, I can't remember, around that time.
Yeah,
he was like, I'm going to
be... I might argue that his take on Star Wars is perhaps not as strong as he would like it to believe.
Don't get me started. I could go on.
We could do an episode on that.
Don't warp skipping. Anyway, speaking of difficult material, I've got mixed feelings about Picard. I mean, I know
I do too.
Yeah, the season 2, when I finally got around to finishing off, I was just like, what? Yeah.
Well, it started very strong. I think in the very beginning, it was very strong, and then it just sort of wandered into weird places and repeated storylines and just got very cloudy in the middle.
I mean, Yeah, I liked all the actors, and I thought the premise of them having to go back and repair time was interesting.
Yeah.
But they also they sent people off to do stuff, and then what they were sent off to do, and they of course it gets delayed because people get arrested and people are like they can't and all the stuff they got sent out to do, they were able to do back at the old ship. So at Rios' ship, so like that old stuff was a waste of time.
Right.
There were so many spinning planes.
It was so many things. As a matter of, I mean, even weird things like Wesley Crusher showing up at the, towards the end there.
Oh, that was just bizarre.
He looked like he should have shown up in one of the nightmare sequences in this episode of Lower Decks.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't want to sort of yuck his yum. I don't feel like the Travelers are the same people as the Gary 7 people, because the Gary 7 people take a real active hand in sort of guiding civilizations, whereas the Travelers seem to be very hippy dippy, like we're traveling the cosmos, man. We're just taking it all in.
Right.
Leave only take only memories. Leave only.
Yeah, I thought that was a very strange blending there. I thought that.
I was
telling me that
I love Will
Travelers
Wheaton. Don't get me wrong. I love Will Wheaton. I love watching his show. I think he's great. But however they directed him in that cameo was very odd, because half the time he's got this grin on his face that's like this rictus grin, and it was very disturbing for after a while.
Yeah, I don't want to.
It was not a flattering moment for him, I don't think. But
he's an enormous Star Trek fan. He hosts the Ready Room, which is a great.
Which is great, and I love it.
I love it. He has a genuine love of Star Trek and a genuine appreciation for being a part of that legacy.
Mm-hmm.
So, despite having a troubled, childhood and life at times. So I never want to shit on him.
I don't either, but it was a very odd moment.
Well, I like the guy as an actor, and I like him as a personality.
Yeah.
I just thought he came off as a little eager looking.
It was just a very odd. It was not directed well. I don't blame him for that at all.
Yeah.
If that same scene had occurred on Lower Decks, I think would have been hilarious, because it would have been funny if he'd shown up.
Yeah,
exactly. But
it is going to be an interesting season, because I don't know whether it's just fan service or what, but they're going to bring back all the the main characters from the original Next Generation show, so you'll get to see a lot of your favorites, and we'll see what they do. I'm curious. It's not like I'm not going to watch it.
Will the Worf incarnation in this version still suck, kind of, or?
I don't know, but he's got white hair.
He's got white hair. He looks like one of those old these old guys who are like in the Marines who could kill you with their pinky,
Yeah.
But he's like either tending bar or like working as a cook somewhere, and he just comes out. We could do a whole episode of like Worf, the toughest man on the Enterprise, was constantly being beat up, presumably to show how tough the other people were in comparison. But it just made him look.
My theory about that is that the DS9 version of Worf was just a complete apology to the STNG.
He got to be a lot more badass on
he did.
Space Nine. So
and Worf, in many ways, got a lot more of the comic relief role than I think you would expect that character to have. Do you know what I mean? Like he
was the straight man.
He ended up being the butt of a lot of jokes. He ended up being put in goofy situations.
He was a midwife. He was a midwife once. Remember that? He had to get it. And I love that in Deep Space Nine, when Keiko was about to have her second kid, and they kind of walk up to Worf, and he's just, the next scene, the camera pans around, and he's already out the door.
Yeah.
Just no explanation.
No. But yeah, I'm looking forward to this next. I had my problems with the last season of Picard. I just felt like they had too many plates spinning. I think they could have excised the whole Sung storyline. And I'm, as much as I like,
Brent Spiner.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Again, words just drill out of my ears like goo. So I think he's a terrific actor. I like to see him play. Got to see him play like a real heavy version of
Right.
himself, you know. But it all felt very like I'm like, what am I watching? What is Q's whole plot? Because it felt like the whole thing.
Yeah, and I would have liked to have seen the Q plot be a little bit more than he just needed to hug it out with Picard, which, you know,
Again,
there should have been
really,
something more to it than that. But
yeah, it also felt like
I know he was dying. I get that, and I know that, you know, but
it was. I mean, I like the last bit of their interaction, but it did feel like, you know, you could have just told him what was happening
yeah,
instead of.
that'll be interesting. You know what? If we're all still around and kicking and doing this by the time Picard rolls around, it'll be interesting to do a recap of season 2, just to talk about about this very topic, because it'll be interesting, and then to see what we get, which I'm hoping will be good, because, you know, there's a lot about it I liked, and I did the beginning of season 2. I really enjoyed. First couple of episodes, I was psyched. I was pumped for it. It was really cool. I loved the way they showed the dark future, and it was very cool. And then it just sort of got muddled and weird. But
it's just too many plates in the air. Just, you know,
yeah, exactly.
Pick a lane, weirdo.
Hey guys, we're coming to the end of the hour. Is there anything else we want to talk about before we roll out of here?
Other than, you know, we talked a little bit about Star Trek Day. I believe you can still watch, if you have Paramount Plus, you can watch. Pretty much, they have this. We'll have the stream up, and you can watch all that. And it's funny. You get to see. They did a Lower Decks panel with Noelle Wells, who plays Tendi, and they also had actress play Mariner, whose name I still can't remember because I'm an idiot. And Paul Tompkins interviewing them, and they were talking, and Noelle Wells kind of had like this sort of breakdown because Paul Tompkins said, tell us about like an important Star Trek memory, and she's like, I can't. I'm just like, she sort of became overwhelmed by everything, but it was very funny and very sweet.
Right.
And it was definitely a live show because you could see sort of like those like weird gaffes that happen when you're broadcasting live, but it's still less fun to watch. So
hey, and you're going to be getting together live and in person, I believe, with Keith Jacobson, aren't you?
Yes, Keith Jacobson, our number one fan, is going to be visiting New York for the first time, starting this Sunday, and I'm going to do a little nerd tour guide with him, take him to some RPG shops, some gaming shops, some sci-fi and comic stores.
Yeah, I'm going to be there. I'm going to be there on Tuesday and Wednesday, and I'm going to show them the place to get drugs. Essentially.
Oh, very good, very good.
I shouldn't give you CVS, the corporation you work for.
Maybe I could talk you guys into doing some short little remote when you get together, or just something on your phone, so we have it for the show. It'd be fun.
Okay.
Just a hi, how do you do? Even if that's it. But that's great. I would love to be up there when Keith's there, but I don't think I'm going to be able to, and that disappoints me because I would love to see him in person. But at any rate, it's exciting. He's coming our way. I'm trying to think if there's anything else.
Nothing really else to promote other than please follow Trek Tonight on Facebook, on Twitter, on Twitch, and I guess Facebook. You know, wood.
Yeah, and YouTube. Well, we're still there. You know, I just got feisty because we were getting slammed for. I don't mind if they put that little thing there that says, oh, there's a possibility of something there, but when they block an episode for something that legitimately is ours, that's when I get annoyed.
This feels like an algorithm thing.
It is, and it's all automated.
It's algorithm.
Yeah, it's all
it's algorithmic. It's also people striking against you. I remember John and Flobo had the same problems with that. It's
well, those guys were fishing.
Yeah,
those guys that were going after John Weber's show were not legitimate. They were just fishing. And John would put a thing out and say, "Well, no, that's not true," and then they would pull their claim again. but this was actually YouTube's algorithm.
Wow.
It's built-in thing.
Welcome to the future.
And you know, what's this?
You have a comment?
Oh, I see. Yes. Okay. Yes. Keith is saying that he will shortly have proof that Leo and Craig actually exist outside his computer monitor.
Right.
I, on the other hand, will still be a question mark.
Yes. Well,
I could be Max Headroom for all you know.
by the way, to all our fans, we are algorithms. So
We are AI constructs. Poor ones.
Yes. Yeah. Anyway. All right. Well, it's 9:00, guys. I can't think of anything else except that we will be here next week, as always, reviewing episode 4 of Lower Decks. And it should be a lot of fun. I'm not quite sure who our guest will be next week, but
we'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out.
It's a mystery until next week.
It is, right. We like to keep it a surprise.
Yes.
I asked Craig last night, basically. That's yeah.
Yeah. Explain by
What are they track tonight tomorrow? Yeah.
Surprise.
Sure. Yeah, that sounds great.
Well, thank you, Craig, for joining us.
Yes, thanks again.
No,
Craig.
thanks. It was fun. It's good seeing you guys as always.
Oh, yeah. And you've got a great picture. I'm telling you, the camera on your new laptop is fantastic.
Yep.
Really a
New
good
M1.
looking image. Good looking image. So
I actually got sleep last night too, so.
Oh, that's good. That's good. All right, guys. I gotta get a wired mouse, I guess. So this wireless mouse keeps dying on me. So I'm gonna kick us out of here. And we will see you all next week. Live long and prosper.